People keep asking what's the next book they need to read, and the answer is very simple. It's Storm of Secrets and Sorrow by Melissa K. Rorick.
In a world created for the descendants of gods, where the Fae are born to serve, a woman bound to the air of death fights fate and desire. Storm of Secrets and Sorrow is book 2 of the best-selling BookTok sensation, a contemporary dark romantasy legacy series for fans of Sarah J. Maas, Kaylee Smith, and Rebecca Yarros.
The second I knew that this book had me was when I realized it had gods, dragons, shifters, vampires, and witches. It has it all for you.
It even has my favorite tropes like morally gray characters, meddling gods, forced proximity, touch her or him and die, one bed, one horse, he falls first, enemies with benefits, like you can't go wrong.
And everyone knows that it is fantastic because the first book was independently published back in 2023, and the series was a #1 Amazon bestseller with nearly 40,000 Goodread reviews and 16,000 Amazon reviews as of 2025. So you know it's grown even more.
And when it was published traditionally, it was an instant New York Times bestseller.
Make sure you get your copy today of Storms of Secrets and Sorrow. It has an incredible deluxe special edition with stenciled edges, a beautiful foil-stamped hardcover, exclusive design with illustrated end papers, and full-color character art.
You can find Storm of Secrets and Sorrow by Melissa K. Rorick wherever books are sold in print and in ebook.
I recently discovered 11 Reader because a fun fact about me that a lot of people don't know is that I have a reading disability. I have always struggled with reading and concentration, and when it comes to things like PDFs or things that I really need to focus on, 11 Reader has really come in handy.
The fact that I can upload my own content, I have so many business memos I have to read every day.
And then it reads it to you, and you get to choose the voice that reads it to you. You get to have a British accent reading those documents to you.
And I just retain so much more.
I really love the voices. Having a British accent whisper sweet nothings about legal documents to me keeps me going.
Start free with 10 hours of your own content per month. And that's essentially a 400-page book turned into audio for free.
Upgrade to Ultra for $11 a month and unlock unlimited uploads plus 20 hours of premium audiobooks every month. No credits, no commitments. It's really the ultimate listening app when you can't get enough. Being able to retain information is really hard for me when I'm reading certain difficult documents. And I really can't emphasize enough to you guys how much 11 Reader has helped me review so many things for the podcast.
Whether you're writing your own book, you have a lot of documents to go through, or you want to listen to audiobooks, choose 11 Reader and use promo code podcast to get your first 2 months for only $1.
Hi, I'm Marissa Lonick, host of the Mama Work It podcast, the show for working moms juggling mom life, work life, fill in the blank life. Each week, we talk real motherhood, real careers, and real strategies to help you thrive, not just survive the season you're in. If you're managing meetings, meltdowns, and big goals, this podcast was made for you. Tune in wherever you catch your podcasts.
Welcome to Academia Unlocked, a special series from BookTok for BookTok with Jack and Amy, where we take one classic work and explore it through 3 episodes, moving from understanding the text to deep analysis, and finally to cultural interpretation.
This is Jack.
And I'm Amy.
Between us, we have over 13 years of academic literary training, bachelor's degrees in creative writing, and master's degrees. We built this series to bring the depth we learn in our training into a space that feels like a conversation anyone can participate in.
Each book gets 3 episodes, and they build atop each other. We start with literary literacy, which is today's episode, reading the work the way you would in a high school AP class, close and careful. In episode 2, our advanced analysis, we shift into a college-level seminar lens. And finally, in episode 3, we look at the book in media, examining adaptations, cultural legacy, and how the book translates beyond the page.
Today we're talking about Joy Luck Club. by Amy Tan. And we don't say anything, but I feel like you may not have had to have read the book. You will be spoiled,
Yes.
unbelievably so. But I do feel like if you ever want like a quick dose of like what the book is about, but without having to read it, we're here. Anyway, before we start, we do need to make something very, very clear. This book has 16 stories, 8 narrators, 2 generations, and more than a century of Chinese and American history woven into it. And it's about 400 pages long.
When you read this for the first time, and I will admit I felt this way, there's a real chance you'll spend half of the time saying, wait, who is this? Which mother or daughter is this? We're going to probably describe them by things that happen in their stories. So like, is this the piano one? Is this the chess one? Is this the one with the swan feather? Is this the mom who leaves her babies on the side of the road, which is a visual I have from the movie from like childhood? By the way.
I know, right? But she doesn't leave them on the side of the road. She places them under a bush with a note. It's all harsh. It starts off with like side of the road, and then it's like we get context to the story. And I'm like, okay, now I'm thinking about a bush. Like there's just so many incredible stories, and yet like, you know, and then all of a sudden the stories are evolving, and I'm like, okay, well, I just got the side of the road in my head. But that's what this episode is for. That's the point of today's breakdown. By the end of this episode, you will know who is who, what happens to whom, and what the emotional engine of this book actually is. And the answer to the last question is both simpler and yet more devastating than the structure makes it look.
The Joy-Luck Club was a book published in 1989 by Amy Tan. I do that because that's the year Jack and I were born.
You might have thought we were born in 99, but shockingly,
89.
Yeah.
The book became an immediate bestseller, a National Book Award finalist, and eventually a film. It is one of the most widely taught novels in American high schools and universities, and it is also one of the most structurally unusual books most people will ever encounter.
Which kind of seems to be a repeat theme on some of these amazing books that we've read, between The Color Purple, Interview with the Vampire, House on Mango Street, and I'm just like, okay, if I need to write a literary masterpiece, we're getting rid of chapters.
The rules.
Yeah, no more rules.
Yep. So let's start with Amy Tan, the author, because in a way the novel is deeply autobiographical. It's not a memoir per se, but it is written from a place of very real personal experience.
Amy Tan, not our Amy.
I think you're going to have to call her by her last name.
Okay, yes. Tan was born in Oakland, California in 1952. She is the daughter of Chinese immigrants. Her mother, Daisy, came to the United States after surviving an extraordinarily difficult life in China between a bad marriage, a child that she left behind, and political upheaval. Tan has talked about how for years she knew almost nothing about her mother's past in China. There was a silence between them that language, culture, and generational differences all contributed to. And honestly, I've seen that theme play out in many of my Asian friends' life and their own stories where they don't know much about their parents' life.
I would say the opposite for me. But anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking about some other
individuals.
Yeah.
In 1987, Tan traveled to China with her mother and met her mother's 3 daughters from that first marriage. Half-sisters Tan had known had existed, but had never met. That trip cracked something open, which honestly makes a lot of sense. And the Joy-Luck Club was written in the years that followed. Quite frankly, I'm shocked at how quickly she wrote it and published it if the trip was in 1987 and it was published in 1989.
She had a lot of things to get off her.
Yeah, she did.
Understandably.
She did.
Which means that when you read daughters who can't fully understand their mothers, mothers who can't fully translate everything they've survived, families fractured by war and immigration, and the specific silence of people who love each other but don't know how to say so, you are reading something that Tan herself lived.
She has been careful to say this is not literally her story or her mother's story, but the emotional landscape is Tan's, and you can feel it when you read it.
And the timing matters too. 1989, fantastic year for people to be born in and for books to be published, is a specific cultural moment. Asian American literature had been gaining recognition throughout the 70s and the 80s, but was still largely marginal to the American mainstream canon. The Joy Luck Club was a commercial and critical watershed. It opened doors, it drew criticism, and it sparked conversations about representation, authenticity, and who gets to tell stories about a community.
So some fun facts about the book. The Joy Luck Club spent 40 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list and was a finalist for the National Book Award and the National Book Critics Circle Award, which I can't even fathom 40 weeks on the bestseller list.
I mean, I don't know what won, but I can tell you this one should have won.
Yeah.
Tan grew up navigating a dual cultural identity, American-born, English-speaking, often in tension with a Chinese-speaking mother whose history and worldview felt alien and overwhelming to her younger self. I've imagined it years prior because I have seen this play out, but reading the book really painted the picture for me.
The novel was partly written in response to Tan's mother's heart attack. Tan wanted to write something her mother could read, and in the event she didn't survive, that showed she had listened to her stories. Oh.
The Joy Luck Club is the name of the mahjong group the mothers form in San Francisco. It is also the name of a similar club, Suyan Wu, one of the mothers, started in Guilin, China during the Japanese invasion as an act of defiance against despair.
Book is often celebrated and also critiqued within Chinese American communities. Some readers find it an authentic portrait of the immigrant experience, while others have argued it reinforces Orientalist tropes or flattens the complexity of Chinese culture for Western audiences. This debate is worth noting now and worth returning to more deeply in episode 3, but I just want to say it was pretty accurate for me.
Okay, let's clarify. Amy, in case no one knows, is half Chinese and grew up in China.
Yes, and my father is Chinese. My grandparents are Chinese. I just don't know how to tell you how much this book hurt me because of how much it reflects my lived experience. I was born in America. I did live in America before I moved to China. I do identify as American-born Chinese, technically. It's confusing.
I mean, I finished this book before you did, and I think one of the first things I said to you was like, oh, I don't look forward to you reading this one. I'm like, this one hurt me thinking of you. But before we go anywhere, we need to talk about the structure because the Joy Luck Club has one of the most amazing, non-traditional, and initially confusing structures of a lot of the novels that you might read in AP English class.
So the book itself is divided into 4 sections. Each of those sections is named for a concept from mahjong. Within each section, there are 4 stories. So there are 16 stories total. Math. And those stories rotate between narrators, the 4 mothers and the 4 daughters, though not always evenly and not always in the ways that are immediately obvious. So the mothers are Su-Yuan Wu, Lindo Zhang, Ying St. Clair, and Anmei Su. The romanization is spelt as if they were Taiwanese, or like an older version of romanization. That's not how, I will not get into it. Never mind. The way things are written, I'm like, that's not how you write it. But I understand it's not for a Chinese audience, it's for an American audience.
Even within the book, there was like a moment where, I can't remember which character, but she moves to America and they're like, you need to get married. And then she was like, I think she said like, oh, but he's Cantonese. And they're like, we're in America now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I understand. It's like, if you said to a Chinese person, but that person's from Florida, they would, so you're American.
Honestly, though, I think saying that person's from Florida is a good enough reason not to get married. No offense, any Floridians, but honestly, I think they'd agree.
The daughters, respectively, so pairing them up with their mothers, are Jing Mei, who goes by June, Waverly Zhang, Lena St. Clair, and Rose Shu Jordan. So here's where things get kind of complicated. Su-Yuan Wu, who is June's mother, has already died before the novel begins, which means June narrates in her mother's place in the sections where Su-Yuan, her mother, would have spoken, which means right from the opening, the novel is built around a voice that's absent. A daughter is trying to speak for her mother and it's a mother she didn't fully know.
And yet at the same time, it's like nails the theme between each mother and daughter, how none of the mothers and daughters know how to speak to each other. And then we have this where, one mother's passed and then like you still have this barrier between them that has sometimes nothing to do with death, but that death is like the finalization of that. But then at the very end, we realize it's not the finalization because she can learn about her. Oh my God. This book is fantastic. There's also no linear plot. The stories are not in chronological order. They loop between 1940s China and 1980s San Francisco, and even some memories in between where the girls, the second generation, are growing up. And they contradict each other in small ways. They give you the same relationship, mother and daughter, from completely different perspectives.
The structure is the argument. The form that this novel is written in is saying, this is how memory works. This is how immigrant family history works. This is what it feels like to be between two worlds. You get fragments, you get partial truths, you get iterations that change over time, and you get the same pain seen from two sides of a generational divide.
And I think that's something that you pick up very quickly in the novel, because once you get what's happening, it starts to really click in place and you stop expecting a plot and start reading it as a portrait. There was never one point ever in this book where I was thinking, okay, let's get to it then, which is incredible because there's so many books that I've read with plot in theory that I kept being like, let's get to the plot.
Yeah.
And this one, I was so entranced the entire time for each story.
Yeah, I was too. And they always ended sadly. I was like, oh.
And like the whole entire book ended on a quote unquote good note, but so sad. It's still like when June is I'm not even reunited, just united with her sisters. And oh my God. And then she discovers her own internal like being Chinese.
Plot twist. It's an ad break.
It has now reached a point that if I don't have my Vionics with me, any of my Vionics with me on a trip, I know that trip is ruined.
My Vionic shoes are my go-to no matter what I'm doing. I just got this City Walk sneaker in black leather and suede, and I cannot tell you how many compliments I've gotten. They are so cute and so comfortable.
So cute. We wore them to a market and you were so mad that it got dusty and dirty and you went home and took care of them. That's how much you love your Vionics.
I've done that to all 3 pairs of my Vionics. As soon as there's a little mark on them, I go home, I wash them because they are perfect.
To add to my Vionic collection, I have the Larissa flats. And unlike the flats that we grew up with that absolutely destroyed my feet, Vionic shoes are powered by VioMotion technology to balance the whole you. Larissa is a contemporary wedged flat that blends modern style with effortless comfort. I tell ya, and my feet are able to withstand walking in them.
And I love the little square toe that they have. I'm a big fan of square toes. What's great about the City Walk sneaker and the Larissa flat, they're great for summer, they're great for fall. Honestly, you can get away with them all year round. Even better, Vionic Shoes offers a 30-day guarantee. Wear them, love them, or return them. Why would you? But you get a full refund within 30 days if you do.
Use code BookTok at checkout for 15% off your entire order at VionicShoes.com when you log into your account. It's a one-time use only.
Vionic Shoes, wearable well-being for your feet.
The 4 sections of the books are named Feathers from 1,000 Li Away, Mother's Prologues, The 26 Malignant Gates, Daughter's Stories, American Translation, Daughter's Stories Continued, and Queen Mother of the Western Skies, Mother's Final Stories.
Each section opens with an untitled parable or folktale style prologue narrated by an unnamed collective voice. These prologues function almost like epigraphs, setting an emotional and thematic register for the stories that follow. So, to give you a sense of what an epigraph is, it's a quote or an excerpt right before the start of a chapter. I'm reading a book right now that has epigraphs of quotes from Charles Dickens' books before every chapter, which I hate Charles Dickens, so woe is to me.
What book is that?
One of Cassandra Clare's books. If you've read Fourth Wing, the little bits of history or Brennan's, book, whatever, that you get before each chapter. Those are epigraphs.
Yeah. The mahjong structure is deliberate. In mahjong, 4 players rotate and the game builds through rounds, just as the novel builds meaning through rotating perspectives rather than linear accumulation. Amy tried to teach me mahjong once, and we learned our lesson. That
I don't
never
even know
happens.
how to play mahjong.
Is that not?
No, it's true.
I was thinking
do.
I never. I'm realizing I thought dominoes.
Wow. Wow.
You showed me one time, and in my head I played. So I remember you showed it to me, and you're like, "This is mahjong," and you're like trying to explain it to me. And in my head, I succeeded, and then I replaced that memory with one where I actually didn't succeed. So that is.
I haven't played mahjong except once. Someone taught me once.
Yeah.
So it's something I would like to eventually learn more.
Yeah. I just cracked myself up where I was like replacing a memory of me trying to like learn something
dominoes.
with, I'm like, I replaced it with one that I succeeded in learning it. And I still didn't succeed in learning that. So.
Yeah. Now, because Su Yuan is already dead, June's chapters carry an additional layer of grief and incompleteness. She's always reconstructing her mother, a woman she can no longer ask questions.
Time moves freely throughout this entire book. Readers get a mother story from wartime China and then immediately a daughter story from the 1980s in San Francisco dinner party. And Tan trusts the readers to hold both realities simultaneously. I never doubted a moment once of like where we were or what was happening or that these two truths are both real.
Yeah. And wartime China, some people might be like, what? What do you mean wartime China? So China was attacked aggressively. A lot of the Pacific was attacked aggressively by the Japanese during what we know as World War II. You may have heard of the rape of Nanking. That's kind of the time frame that this is all happening, when Japan tried basically to infiltrate and conquer a bunch of areas.
Do you mind giving, like, you don't have to go into the details of what happened, but I think that it's one of those horrific war stories that an entire government, the Japanese government, has worked to suppress. I mean, some of the times, I remember you were telling me there was one of your memories of traveling and visiting because you went to an international school and some of the Japanese students there were like, this isn't real. And it was just an interesting, and I feel like it's something that even Western like history doesn't teach.
Yeah, I agree, because they're very focused on the Western experience, right? So the Japanese were allied with Germany, and to divide basically the attention of the Russians and the Americans and the Western Hemisphere, they attacked China, Vietnam, and lots of different areas of the Pacific because, like many attacking countries, Japanese viewed itself as the superior race among Asians. And in China, they went to many of the port cities. Nanking, in America, you call it Nanking. In Chinese, we call it Nanjing. They basically went and massacred everybody. Like, it's very horrific. I don't encourage you to look it up because it's so gruesome. But beheading women and children, assaulting people, killing people in the streets.
It's the kind of horrors that, like, I never imagined people could do. It's the kind of thing that, like, my brain never even conceived of, like, what's the horrific thing that people can do to one another. And if your mind can go there, it went there.
Yeah. If you've ever read The Poppy War, what happens in the Poppy War with the massacring is a reflection of what happened in China during the 40s. And it's awful. It's very, very bad. But this was also the fall of imperialist China and paved the way for communist China to take over, which was in itself its own civil war thereafter in the 50s. So there are hints of that throughout this that I think is worth knowing from a cultural and historical point of view.
Yeah, I mean, and during this time, you had a lot of Chinese people leave China and, you know, take some of their fortune, try to, you know, take what they can get and go. And, you know, whether you had money or didn't have money. But I think once you understand the context, a lot of Chinese media, and whether it's Chinese media or Western books that focuses on Chinese characters. Like I think about Crazy Rich Asians, and I had seen that movie and I was like, this is incredible. And then I had learned more about this and then saw that movie and I was like, there's a lot of references about this.
Yeah, there are. And to something Jack said, every country is guilty of suppressing information about their horrific acts. So in
Hello, America, we're here, United States, like we understand.
In Nanjing, there is a memorial museum, just kind of like the Holocaust Museum in DC. There's a memorial museum to what happened in Nanjing in the 40s. And that's when my classmates, we were visiting Nanjing for a week. My Japanese classmate said, well, no, this isn't true because the Japanese government suppresses the information about Japan's role in everything. But the Chinese government is just as guilty when in the 80s, students tried to promote democracy instead of communism and protested. They were violently killed by their government, and most people in China know nothing about it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, we kind of have to, as humans and people who have empathy, understand that two things can be true, right? Innocent people were absolutely decimated, were absolutely horrifically attacked. And yes, that government and that country ends up doing similar things or other horrific things to their own people. One does not negate the other. So just keeping those, I think that context is important as we continue.
Yeah.
Now, knowing that context and knowing that this is where the mothers of this novel come from, it starts to give a whole new meaning because each of these mothers come to the United States carrying a story. And the novel gives us each of those stories in fragments, which is why we're going to lay them out clearly right now so that we can kind of match the stories to the timelines.
Now, the important thing to remember as we go through this is that these are not simple backstories. Each mother has a devastating narrative in her own right and, quite frankly, a traumatic upbringing, regardless of how well off she or her family were or were not. Now, while the daughters experience their mothers as being difficult in, the present, that difficulty stems from the shadow of something these mothers had to survive and don't know how to articulate or don't want to articulate because they don't want their daughters to have to experience it.
Yeah. And the cultural differences, like that's the other thing that this book just nails where, how can you begin to relate to someone who grew up in an entirely different world that you can't even begin to fathom? Suyen Wu, June's mother, we're going to go through each of the mother's stories briefly. She's the one who dies at the beginning of the novel or who is already deceased by the beginning of the novel. She is born in China during the Japanese invasion of Guilin. She was forced to flee on foot with her two infant daughters. She becomes too weak and sick to carry them. She has to leave them on the side of the road with her jewelry and a note believing that she was going to die and that someone would find and care for the girls. However, she does survive. She makes it to the United States. She remarries and has June. She spent decades searching for the daughters that she was forced to abandon and never stops writing letters to find them. Eventually, she dies of a brain aneurysm before she's able to reunite with her daughters, and June completes the reunion at the end of the novel. It is her mother's journey she is finishing, not her own. Yes, today's the first day of my period. It doesn't matter. It made me cry then, and it might make me cry now. She's also the founder of the original Joy Luck Club in Guilin, a weekly gathering to eat, play mahjong, and deliberately choose hope over despair while bombs fall. She brings the same spirit to the San Francisco club as well, which is how, so inspirational too. And her daughter doesn't even begin to understand that.
The next mother we're going to talk about is Lindo Zhang, and she is Waverly's mother. Lindo was betrothed at the age of 2 by a matchmaker to a boy she didn't know in a traditionally arranged marriage. This is in China, by the way. She was sent to live with her future in-laws at 12 because her family was poor and essentially was treated as a servant from between the age of 12 and 16, at which point she married the boy that she was engaged to. She escapes the marriage through cleverness. She fabricates a story about prophetic dreams because the Chinese are highly superstitious and convinces the family to let her go without shame, which is her way of reclaiming her freedom without losing face, which is a concept so central to Chinese culture and to this novel. This idea of not losing face. You know, if you think Mulan, you dishonor your family, your
Dishonor to
ancestors.
you, dishonor your family, dishonor to your cow.
Yes. That is a huge, important, very important concept to how Asian cultures conduct themselves. Lindo then came to America, built a life, and raised Waverly as a chess prodigy. But in doing so, also becomes a source of immense pressure and complicated pride that defines their relationship. Lindo's driving ethos is that you must be strong, you must be clever, and you must never let the world see your weakness. That is how she gets through life. It is not necessarily her daughter's way of life.
I just feel like when you lay it out there, because you get her story and then you get some of her daughter's story, but when you lay it out there, it makes sense why she thinks that she's helping her daughter with chess. Because she had to play mental chess and her own life chess in order to survive. So, like, she actually is good at strategy. And that's what's heartbreaking is because, you know, is she actually helping her daughter? No. But I also understand because she is relating to her daughter and knows, like, had to use her own cleverness to survive. Yeah, when you lay it out, you're like, oh, that makes sense why you were so intense with this.
Cue dramatic music and an ad. I always forget how long summer is in California, and all of my work clothes are geared towards fall/winter. I need more summer-appropriate staples.
I'm going to be going to Portugal at the end of the summer, and I need Quince to help me with summer vacation clothes because they have literally everything.
They make elevated essentials using premium materials like European linen, organic cotton, and washable silk, which is my personal favorite, without the traditional retail markup.
They also have amazing shoes. I got their ballerina Mary Jane flats in brown, and I will be walking Portugal in that the entire time. They are so comfortable.
I also recently discovered that they have really fabulous 14-karat gold jewelry. Everything is subtle, delicate, and just classy. Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands because they work with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen. So you're paying for exceptional quality, not brand markup.
Quince has everything you need from apparel to home to bedding to bath and all of the kitchen essentials and furniture. Make your summer wardrobe feel easier.
Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365 days returns. Now available in Canada too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping and 365-day returns.
Quince.com/booktalk.
Then we go to Ying Ying St. Clair, who is Lena's mother. She's born into a wealthy Chinese family. She's vivacious and willful as a child. She marries a man who was cruel and unfaithful, and in a moment of despair and rage, she drowned her infant son, an act the novel treats with devastating complexity rather than condemnation. Honestly, I wasn't even aware as I was reading it.
Really?
Yeah, because it is complicated. At first, I was like, oh, so the baby wasn't born. And then I was like, oh, no, I do know what happens now. Afterwards, her husband abandons her and she spends years in poverty and emotional collapse before eventually marrying an American man, St. Clair, and coming to the United States. She is the most spiritually and psychologically fragile of the four mothers, and she believes she lost her spirit, her chi, the day she killed her son. And she has moved through life as a ghost of herself ever since. Her relationship with Lena is defined by Ying Ying's silence and Lena's inability to understand that silence, which is also, the novel suggests, Lena's inability to see what's in front of her in her own life and marriage. These stories all connect beautifully.
Yep. Lastly, we have Anmei Su, who is Rose's mother. Anmei's own mother was a widow who became a man's fourth concubine, which is a super shameful position in traditional Chinese society. As a concubine, but also
The number
four in Mandarin sounds like death or die. So it's their version of the number 13.
I've told you before, but fun fact, in London, I had a Chinese roommate, and every time I'd make my breakfast, which would be like scrambled eggs, she would like run out the door because I always cooked 4 eggs.
I forgot. Ultimately, An Mei's mother was disowned by her family, and An Mei, as a result, was raised without her mother until adolescence. Her mother then takes her away to live with, her, what do you call a man for whom you are the concubine? I don't know.
Oh, her,
Can't say
I
master.
don't know. Husband?
But he's
Not her husband. Her
yeah, anyway,
partner.
her lover.
Yeah.
Her mother takes An Mei. They go live with the other concubines and wives and children. And eventually, An Mei's mother does kill herself as a deliberately timed act so that her ghost would haunt the lover. And he, being superstitious and afraid of ghosts, basically she cons him into promising to raise An Mei in wealth. An Mei eventually moves to America, raises several children, and carries from her own mother's sacrifice a fierce belief in speaking rather than suffering in silence, which is the lesson she tries to pass on to Rose, who unfortunately struggles to advocate for herself in her failing marriage.
I love her quote. In America, I'm not afraid. I can do anything I want. I can speak up, be direct, tell people what I think. I do not sew my mouth shut.
Yeah, it's a good description of her character.
Fantastic. So let's talk about the daughters. And here's the thing about the daughters that's important to hold on to. They are not the antagonists in the story. Even when they behave in ways that might read as cold or dismissive towards their mothers, I do find them to be very empathetic characters. I think that I'm a daughter of an immigrant family. However, it's such a different culture than an experience than what is described here. So I can't even begin to relate to this. But I think it is fair to say that it's relatable to live in your own truth and not understand someone that you do love and just have that truth, like not be able to even cohabitate with someone else.
So for the daughters, they're all women who grew up with mothers whose pain they couldn't fully understand, partially because their mothers never fully talk about it or explain it. And they don't all always speak the same language, right? Not all of them are trained to speak in Chinese as well as their mothers because they didn't grow up in China. They also carry expectations formed by their mothers who grew up in a world that no longer exists. So really, when you think about it, and I feel this way about myself, like they're doing the best they can with what they have, but you can't please someone who doesn't communicate with you.
Their stories in the novel are largely set in the 80s in San Francisco, and they deal with the specific pressure of that world: marriages, careers, self-worth, identity. And in each case, the shape of their adult problem connects directly back to something their mother's history, even when the daughters can't see the connection themselves, because that's just good writing. Quick deviate. This reminds me of a TikTok that is super popular right now. And it's this 17-year-old who is Asian. I believe she is Chinese. And she says, here are strict rules that I have as a 17-year-old. And she goes on to talk about how her phone is regularly open. She's like, she has no privacy. If her parents want to go through her phone, she's allowed to go through her phone. Her door has to remain open at all times. Like, there is just no privacy, essentially. And they are strict rules, especially for a young woman who was accepted to multiple Ivy Leagues, who is going off to college in the fall, who is everything that a good Asian daughter, quote unquote, should be, right? Her dad sees this TikTok video and creates an account, and the account name is so-and-so's, his daughter's name's dad, right? And his TikTok is just mean. He stitches it, and he starts making fun of like the face routine that she does in her video. And he just complains about how she was given everything, like all the toys. She had more toys than anyone else. She had a phone by the time she was 10. She got a brand new car when she was 16. And what I found so interesting with this is that the father was probably like an elder millennial, and probably grew up with even stricter parents. And here is someone who I'm making a lot of guesses, right? But someone who probably grew up in because we always try to do better than our parents, right? Probably grew up in an even stricter household and thinks, if I give you everything, therefore I'm not the same. And you are perpetuating some of these continued traumas without recognizing that, like, just because you leaned up in one way doesn't mean that you are, and she doesn't even like say anything bad about her parents. All she said was, these are the rules that I have as a 17-year-old who's about to go and become an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just an interesting story that I saw.
It hurt my soul. That's why I'm not reacting.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's start with the first daughter, Jing Mei. June is her American name, Wu, who is Su Yan's daughter. June is the closest thing the novel has to a central protagonist. She narrates the framing sections of the novel and the final chapter in which she travels to China to meet the twin sisters her mother left behind. She is the daughter who felt she could never live up to her mother's expectations, partly in contrast to Waverly Zhang, the chess prodigy, who seemed to represent everything Su Yan wanted June to be, which means, of course, there's a rivalry between June and Waverly. June's central wound is that she believes her mother was always disappointed in her. The novel's emotional resolution is June beginning to understand that her mother's expectations were an expression of love, not contempt, and that she carries more of her mother in her than she realized. Some people might refer to June as the piano daughter because one of the stories focuses on June as a child being pushed into becoming a piano prodigy by her mother, Su Yan, which ends in a very public humiliation. And the piano itself sits untouched in their home for years afterward as both a monument to her mother's hope and the daughter's refusal, which I also felt in my bones.
I remember I asked my aunt one time if I was a prodigy. I was like, I wonder if I'm a prodigy at anything. And I was like 11. She looked at me. She was like, no, you're not. We would have known by now.
Which aunt was that?
Sandra?
Sandra?
I'll let you guess. You think it was Aunt Sandra? No, it was Aunt Evelyn.
Okay. That was my second guess.
Yeah. There's only so many aunts. Next up is Waverly Zhang, Lindo's daughter, a chess prodigy as a child, famous in San Francisco, who felt her mother, who took pride in her as a trophy rather than a person, and deliberately gave up chess to deprive her mother of that pride. In the novel's present, she is a successful tax attorney preparing to remarry a white man named Richard, and desperately anxious about getting her mother's approval for the relationship. Her dynamic with Lindo is the novel's sharpest portrayal of a mother-daughter power struggle, two extremely intelligent, extremely proud women who've been competing with and for each other throughout Waverly's whole life. Her story is also about the immigrant daughter's specific pressure, being asked to be exceptional in American terms while also being measured by Chinese ones and finding these two standards impossible to reconcile.
Also hurt me. Let's just say I was in a lot of pain this entire book.
Yeah. I feel like each daughter kind of had a moment where they're just like, you're too harsh on me, or why don't you just say you don't like Richard? Like, just say, and it's like, did I say I didn't like him? Or like the other one was, I think you're going to get up to her. It's like the daughter who was going through the divorce. And she was like, I told you to speak up, not to fight for him.
Okay. Lena St. Clair is Ying Ying's daughter. And Lena is an architect. Not really. She's not technically licensed as an architect, but she works at an architecture firm married to an architect named Harold. And it looks like a functional marriage from the outside, but it is quietly destroying her on the inside. Lena and Harold split everything financially 50-50, including household expenses, which sounds equitable until you realize Harold earns significantly more from Lena and constantly dismisses her contributions as hers and takes credit for them instead. Lena grew up absorbing her mother's silences and anxieties and has therefore become a woman who doesn't say what she needs and who watches her life go wrong but doesn't intervene. Her mother, Ying Ying, sees this clearly and is desperate to help her daughter reclaim the spirit that Ying Ying lost herself. Lena's arc asks, what does it cost a woman to keep quiet about what she needs? And what does it cost a mother to watch her daughter make the same silence mistakes, essentially, that the mother made.
Yeah. Touch some grass, stretch, and listen to this ad break. And finally, we have Rose Sue Jordan, Anne May's daughter. Rose is in the process of a divorce from a white American man named Ted when the novel opens up. Ted, who once told Rose he loved how she always agreed with him, has now told her he wants a divorce partly because she's too passive and has no opinions of her own. The irony is painful and deliberate. A man who selected a woman for her agreeableness, which, by the way, is very much female Asian stereotype, which is Ted fetishizing her, then leaving her for being too agreeable. Rose has spent their marriage deferring to Ted on every decision because she believed that that's what he wanted. Her mother, Anne May's central lesson to Rose is, you must find your own voice and speak. I love that was you're mad at me. And it's like, I just want you to speak. And this is the lesson Anne May's own mother paid for with her own life. The novel closes Rose's arc with her finally standing firm in the divorce negotiations, refusing to give up the house, refusing to disappear.
That was the most satisfying.
So good. There's also a tragedy in her background. Rose's younger brother, Bing, drowned at the beach when Rose was a teenager, and she was supposed to be watching him. The guilt of that day has shaped her passivity ever since, which I feel like is another one that you can thank God, not relate to in the sense of losing a brother, but being forced to watch after your younger siblings.
Yeah, being parentified.
I actually thought of you throughout the whole thing, but I feel like if any of your brothers had been sisters, if that parentified expectations would have been distributed, because her older sisters got to go and play. But I mean, I don't mean
sisters?
to be her older sisters.
Were they older?
Yeah, they were older. And because then she was expected to take care of the younger ones, because then it was like, oh, now it's your turn to learn how to take care of the younger ones. I don't mean to be getting into your personal life, but I was like, I wonder if it wasn't for the fact that like the younger ones didn't come out until they were like, the girls didn't come until like way younger.
No, I feel like it's more that the oldest one is always parentified. Even if I had a sister right after me, she would be the more free one.
Okay. I mean, definitely. I have no doubt about that. So let's look at some of these major themes, but at a AP English high school level understanding of this. We're pulling out the thematic threads. What is this novel actually about beneath the structure and the individual stories?
The Joy Luck Club is one of those books where naming the themes clearly in episode 1 really actually matters, because when we go into next week's episode, we're going to go deeper into the theoretical framework. So this is basically laying the groundwork for next week.
Some of the major themes. The first one being the mother-daughter relationship as essential access. Every story in this novel is, at the core, about a mother and daughter who love each other and cannot fully reach each other. Their love for one another is not in question. It's more about the gap between them that is the subject.
Another really important theme that I think we can understand regardless of culture is immigration and the fracturing of identity. For each mother, they gave up something irretrievable when she came to America. She gave up a language, a self, some of them children, and their history, and everything. I mean, just China is just so different from America. I can't even imagine a difference in the 40s.
Well, I mean, and I want to emphasize different from Western culture as a whole, because my family's from Chile, and I heard stories of my grandma's experience, my mom, when, before she left, and what Chile was like then, and just nowhere near similar to China,
the Chinese. Yeah.
To the Chinese culture.
Each daughter then grows up between two worlds, right? The world her mother remembers and the world that is around her, but ultimately never belongs fully to either. Again, something I very much identify with. And the novel maps what that fracturing of identity costs them.
Silence versus speech. Almost every conflict in this book is rooted in something that was not said. Mothers who couldn't translate their pain into English, daughters who couldn't ask the right questions, women in marriages who learned to go quiet. The novel asks, what does silence protect? Which is usually nothing. And what does it destroy? Which is usually everything.
Yeah. I mean, silence usually protects men.
Yeah. And then silence, when you don't use it, sometimes like there's moments of cruelty between the mothers and daughters that like should have been silenced. But so silence would be useful then. But at the same time, by saying those cruel things, they're still being silent because they're not saying the things that actually matter and that would help them connect.
Yeah. Then another theme is the difference between expectation and inheritance. All the mothers, as I think most mothers do, have enormous hopes for their daughters, but those hopes are shaped by what they survived and what they denied. The daughters receive these hopes as pressure, criticism, or impossibly high standards. Is it possible for someone to be right or wrong in this situation? The novel doesn't really resolve that question, and it's one I'm not willing to answer either.
Before I go into the last one, I just also want to make a point because you were reading that and it made me think that, you know, I try to have like empathy for my mom and, you know, any mothers where it's like, this is your first time being in this world, first time being a parent, right? You're just trying to figure out this life at the same time. And when you have these women from China going into the United States, and now not only are you a first time parent, first time experiencing these things, you are experiencing this culture for the first time.
Yeah. Learning a new language.
Right. Because at least when you're experiencing things in your own culture, you have that point of reference. And there's a double first time thing here going on for them. And then finally, there's the meaning of the past. For the mothers, the past in China is not over. It lives in their body, in the behavior, in every choice they make. For the daughters, the past is something distant and often incomprehensible. Bridging that gap or failing to is what this book is about.
So this is just the groundwork. Next week, we're going to go deeper into these concepts as well as the concept of motherland as both literal and psychological, how Tan uses folktale and myth as a structural device, which I'm excited to talk about.
If someone is listening to this and goes like, wow, this episode feels pretty incomplete. Well, that's just the story, babe. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, there is no resolution. I like to think that there's moments of hope, moments of the daughters or mothers just kind of being like, well, maybe if I do this thing, or wow, maybe they didn't mean it in this way. And I take that as an optimist. I take it as like potential hope. We didn't even mention how some of the daughters, because they're all friends, they grew up together, how they treat each other.
Yeah.
And how they feel attacked amongst each other and how they do attack one another.
Yeah.
Just because of like, that's all they know. Right. But that's because of what they know of love, of like when you care about someone. It's really heartbreaking and very beautiful at the same time. So here is what we want you to take away from this episode. The Joy Luck Club is a novel about really the failure and the struggles of translation. Not linguistic translation, not only that, though that is definitely a part of it, but the failure to translate a life of culture, a failure to translate suffering into something a child can understand, a suffering that is so unfathomable. How can you begin to even tell your story, especially in a way that you probably don't want to experience? How are you supposed to tell your child, BT dubs, I drowned your brother?
Right.
Good luck explaining that one.
Right.
And the failure to translate love in a way that a person you love can actually receive that love.
Yeah. Yeah, this book. And it's also the question of, you know, on one hand, the mothers are probably right to not transfer their trauma to their daughters, right?
Totally.
But it comes out in unexpected ways that they don't understand is causing its own version of trauma.
Yeah.
You know, and even though it is their expression of love, you know, the mothers are trying to give their daughters everything, trying to help them learn the lessons without the suffering. But the daughters can't see that and can't receive it because they don't know what's happening. They don't know what to do with it. The novel holds space for all of that, but doesn't like assign blame or pass judgment. It just is.
Yeah. One of the things that I will commend all of the mothers on is that they never once, at least not what we read in the novel, say, you know what? you're not forced to marry someone at 12 or move in with a different family. At least you didn't grow up with your mother as a fourth concubine. At least, like they never used their own experience as a weapon, actively at least. Again, there's a lot of subconscious things that happened, but the fact that they never bring it up and try to compare their experience to their daughters and say, how good do you have it, shows that love that they have for them, that they don't hold it against their own daughters that they want something better and more for them. But how are you supposed to even cope with that level of trauma? And they're not going to therapy.
Right. Nobody's going to therapy.
Yeah.
Actually, one of them is.
One of the mothers.
No, one of the daughters.
Yeah,
and the
one of
mom
the daughters
is mocking her for it.
The ending of the book, which is June in China, meeting her sisters that her mother left behind and seeing her mother's face in theirs, is the moment where translation finally partially begins to work because she's also understanding what it means to be Chinese. Because at one point she tells her mom, like, I'm not Chinese. I don't want to be Chinese. And her mom was like, joke's on you. You will always be Chinese. And it's not because June suddenly understands everything about her mother, but because she sees that the love was there all along, traveling towards its destination for 50 years, just as she's realizing, yes, I was Chinese all along. Yes, her mom loved her all along.
Yeah. Ooh.
No, I know, I'm trying not to cry right now.
And at the end of the day, that's what this book is about. It's about an expression of love that crosses continents and generations. God. Wow. And, it doesn't show up when you want it to.
Yeah.
But it gets there eventually.
Look, we did it. We finally made you cry.
Thanks, trauma.
Well, I wonder, do you feel like this helped you, like, knowing?
No, because my dad has always been very vocal about his past.
Yeah. Some people try sometimes, sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do. Next episode, we go deeper. We're going to be looking at the structural and theoretical layers, how the novels form and enacts its themes, and what it means to read this book through the lens of diaspora literature, the folk tale and myth embedded in the narrative, and the Orientalism debate that this book has sat at the center of for 30 years. So we'll talk about it then. Amy and I are recording it tomorrow, so we'll see if some of the...
we will still be on our periods, so we might be crying.
We'll be crying. We'll be definitely crying. Thank you for listening to this episode of Academia Unlocked with Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Share your comments through our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini episode or in a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle BookTalk for Book Talk.
Bye.
Bye.
I always forget how long summer is in California, and all of my work clothes are geared towards fall, winter. I need more summer appropriate staples.
I'm going to be going to Portugal at the end of this summer, and I need Quince to help me with summer vacation clothes because they have literally everything.
They make elevated essentials using premium materials like European linen, organic cotton, and washable silk, which is my personal favorite, without the traditional retail markup.
They also have amazing shoes. I got their ballerina Mary Jane flats in brown, and I will be walking Portugal in that the entire time. They are so comfortable.
I also recently discovered that they have really fabulous 14 karat gold jewelry. Everything is subtle, delicate, and just classy. Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands because they work with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen. So you're paying for exceptional quality, not brand markup.
Quince has everything you need, from apparel to home to bedding to bath and all of the kitchen essentials and furniture. Make your summer wardrobe feel easier.
Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping and 365-day returns.
Quince.com/booktalk.